Welcome to Meridian Hill Park, which is one of my favorite places in Washington, D.C. I know the drab concrete and stagnant water looks pretty dystopian, but I think if you look below the surface here, there's a lot of utopia to be found. That duality is already clear just in the park's name. The park itself is located up 16th Street, a straight shot north of the White House and the Washington Monument. In fact, obelisks and other monuments can be found all over the place in this park, which is pretty cool. The park is technically named Meridian Hill Park by the National Park Service, but most locals and DC natives call it Malcolm X Park, a name that harkens back to the park's role as an organizing space for black activists in the 1960s. Even today, there's a sense of community at the park, and it's a sense of community that exists in spite of the higher powers that be and systems that create injustice in the city that these people call home. The first several photos here are ones that I took last October, when I was wandering around DC for a different classes project. Because of this, I had the experience of hearing the park before I saw it, but we'll get to that later. Here are a few of the main characters. This is Nate G., a local artist and musician, and his friend Jarrell. Nate is working on a comic strip pasted on the James Buchanan Memorial, which he says is about fighting the government and gentrification. This guy on the slack line is Dave Lapidus, who cogently summed up what happens at the park each week. Quote, "On Sundays, this park is the meaning of life," he said. It's sort of like the rainbow family that we've talked about in class, because there's an element both of spontaneity and of inclusion. Most everyone is willing to talk to you and share what they have with you as long as you come with a spirit of generosity, too. These guys were awesome. This is Ahmed Jabali Nash doing crazy inverted stuff. I did not participate. This guy was very friendly. His name was O'Dane Dixon, and he and I chatted about the gemstones he was selling. He showed me his notebook where he had diagrams and musings and notes about spirituality. He explained to me also that the Washington Monument is a sundial, which I thought was fake at the time, but Google it, I think it's true. When I mentioned earlier that I heard the park before I saw it, I was referring to the Malcolm X drum circle. This is the main event of the park, I think. This is like a spontaneous mishmash of music that happens every Sunday afternoon at the park when the weather is warm. This Sunday in October was one of the last of the year before it was going to get too cold, so it seemed to draw a big crowd. I mostly stood off to the side that day, but I did get to talk to this bassist. His name was Willie Chill. He told me he was from Liberia and that he'd traveled the world playing his music. Now, fast forward 5 months or so, and the weather is turning warm again. I went last Sunday, I think it was March 1st, and I thought I'd return to the park for this project. It was much sunnier that day. Viewed through the lens of this class, I saw how there was really a lot of dystopian about Malcolm X Park. I mean, its water features were dried up. There was litter, including bird scooters, and the architecture of the place generally can look a little drab in places, like much of the architecture in D.C. But just as I'd hoped, there was still utopia to be found in the community of people that had already gathered there. A few of the drummers were back, a few familiar faces, and to my absolute surprise, Willie Chill, the man himself in his red reflective glasses, remembered me, and we picked up right where we left off last time. I also met Boomer, a native Californian who wore a nice brown hat and played the guitar.
I think you know the song's real simple. This part of town's been gentrified and verified and verified, crucified, all types of typified, yeah. So what do you want me to say? It is or it used to be? Is it still a dangerous part of town?
After visiting with them and watching them play, I thought my day would be over, and it seemed like the full drum circle wouldn't be out there for another couple weeks or so. But Willie and Boomer invited me along with them after they were done. They took me around in their Prius. They said they were going to go play at a club, which didn't sound very ecotopian to me, but the Prius did, so I thought I'd entertain it. Where we ended up, actually, was Bloom Bars in Parkview on 11th Street. It was a fabulous community art space that hosts workshops and live music, so some club. It had a great mural on the side of the building, and Willie asked to have his photograph taken in front of it. Inside the building were some familiar faces from the park before. This was where the rest of the drum circle was. The space itself was vibrantly decorated with flowers, books, instruments, drawings, and signs. This space, unlike Malcolm X Park, I think better captured the affect of the group of people. We walked in and no one asked us any questions. I just took a few photos, picked up a drum, and we played for as long as we wanted. They were still going strong when I left, rehearsing, I think, for this spring. I'm willing to bet they'll be at the park every Sunday after this, and all are welcome. I highly recommend that you visit.